Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flora Files, where we dive into the world's most fascinating plants and fungi, one species at a time. Today's subject looks like something that shouldn't exist at all. Pale, waxy, and almost translucent, it rises from the forest floor like a forgotten ghost. At first glance, it looks dead. There's no green, no leaves soaking up sunlight, no sign of photosynthesis, and that's not an illusion. This plant doesn't use sunlight at all. In fact, it completely abandons one of the most basic rules of plant life. So how does it survive? This is Monotropa uniflora, and it barely looks like a plant at all. This eerie appearance is exactly why it's earned such evocative common names: ghost plant, Indian pipe, and corpse plant. Each name reflects the same unsettling impression, that this thing belongs more to decay than to life, because it often appears suddenly after rain, clustered among leaf litter, and lacks leaves or green coloration. Many people assume it's a fungus or a sign of decay. But despite how it looks, Monotropa uniflora is very much a real plant, and not a fungus, mold, or strange forest rot. Botanically speaking, it belongs to the Ericaceae family, the same plant family as blueberries, cranberries, and heathers. That connection feels surprising, almost absurd until you remember that nature loves a good plot twist. The ghost plant is a perennial flowering plant, meaning it returns year after year and produces flowers even though it lacks what we usually consider a basic plant feature, chlorophyll. Without chlorophyll, it can't photosynthesize, which explains its ghostly white appearance. It also means no sugar production from sunlight, and that's where the confusion begins. Instead of green leaves and sturdy stems, it rises from the forest floor as a pale, waxy apparition. Ghostly white, sometimes tinged with pink, blue, or even faint gray. Its surface looks almost translucent, as if light could pass straight through it, giving the plant an otherworldly glow in shaded woods. The stem is smooth and fleshy, and there are no true leaves, just small scale-like structures clinging to the stalk. At the top sits its most distinctive feature, a single nodding flower, which gives the species its name, uniflora, meaning one flower. Early in its growth, the flower droops downward like a bowed head, reinforcing its mournful, spectral appearance. As it matures, the flower may slowly lift, revealing delicate petals surrounding the reproductive structures. One of the strangest traits of the ghost plant is what happens when it's disturbed. When dried, bruised, or damaged, the once white tissue turns black, as chemical compounds oxidize within the plant. This dramatic color change has only added to its eerie reputation and helped inspire names like corpse plant, even though it's unrelated to the famously smelly Titan arum. Monotropa uniflora doesn't grow year-round. Instead, it emerges suddenly after rainfall, often appearing almost overnight. Its growing season typically stretches from late spring through early fall, depending on local climate and moisture. You'll most often find it in deep, shaded forest with rich organic soil, especially beneath hardwood trees like beech, oak, and maple. Because it relies on underground fungal networks rather than sunlight, it thrives where light is scarce and decomposition is abundant. The ghost plant doesn't compete for sunlight or space. It waits patiently below ground, unseen, silent, until conditions are just right. As mentioned before, unlike nearly every plant you've ever encountered, Monotropa uniflora has no chlorophyll at all, and without chlorophyll, it cannot photosynthesize. For most plants, photosynthesis is everything. Sunlight powers a chemical reaction inside chloroplasts, allowing plants to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugars, their primary source of energy. This process doesn't just feed the plant itself, it forms the foundation of nearly every food web on Earth. From towering trees to tiny grasses, plants are typically the producers, the organisms that turn sunlight into life. So when you look at the ghost plant, something feels fundamentally wrong. It grows, it flowers, it produces seeds, yet it makes none of its own food. That raises an obvious question. How does it survive at all? Instead of making its own energy, Monotropa uniflora relies on an unseen system beneath the forest floor. Underground, fungi form vast, thread-like webs called mycorrhizal networks. These fungi attach themselves to the roots of trees in a mutually beneficial partnership. Trees provide the fungi with sugars made through photosynthesis. In return, fungi expand the tree's effective root system, helping it absorb water and minerals like phosphorus and nitrogen. It's a beautifully balanced exchange, and until the ghost plant enters the picture. Instead of producing sugars itself, the ghost plant taps directly into these underground fungal networks, siphoning off nutrients that were never meant for it, allowing it to survive via a nutritional strategy called mycoheterotrophy. By connecting to mycorrhizal fungi, Monotropa uniflora quietly steals carbon compounds and energy that originated in nearby trees. The energy flow looks like this: tree to fungus to ghost plant. The tree photosynthesizes and produces sugars. The fungus receives those sugars through its partnership with the tree, and the ghost plant intercepts a portion of that energy for itself. Because Monotropa uniflora depends so completely on underground fungal networks, its habitat is extremely specific and surprisingly fragile. The ghost plant is found across much of North America, from Canada through the United States and into Mexico, as well as parts of temperate Asia, including regions of Japan, Korea, and China. Monotropa uniflora thrives in shaded, mature forests with thick layers of rich leaf litter. These environments provide the stable moisture, cool temperatures, and undisturbed soil structure that mycorrhizal fungi require to flourish. It is especially common in forests dominated by beech and oak trees. These trees form strong mycorrhizal relationships with the specific fungal species Monotropa relies on, creating a dependable energy pipeline. Despite its ghostly appearance and underground lifestyle, Monotropa uniflora still relies on a very familiar process to reproduce: pollination by insects. When the ghost plant first emerges, its single flower hangs downward, nodding toward the forest floor. This drooping posture may help protect the flower from rain or guide specific pollinators toward its reproductive structures. Bees and flies are the primary visitors, drawn not by bright color, but by subtle cues, including scent and contrast against the dark forest background. Once pollination occurs, something remarkable happens. The flower slowly straightens and turns upright, a visible signal that fertilization has been successful. This shift isn't just symbolic, it positions the developing seed capsule for efficient dispersal, lifting it above the leaf litter where seeds would otherwise be trapped. Inside that capsule, the ghost plant produces thousands of tiny seeds. Each one is dust-like, similar to the seeds of orchids, and contains almost no stored energy. This allows them to be carried by wind, potentially spreading far beyond the parent plant. But it also creates a major challenge. Unlike most seeds, Monotropa uniflora's seeds cannot germinate on their own. They lack the resources to grow independently and must immediately form a relationship with the right mycorrhizal fungus in the soil. Without this fungal partner, the seed simply fails. This extreme specialization makes successful reproduction incredibly rare. Even when thousands of seeds are released, only a tiny fraction ever encounter the exact fungal species they need in the right soil conditions connected to the right host trees. And yet this strategy has worked for millions of years. By outsourcing energy acquisition entirely to fungal networks, the ghost plant avoids competition with green plants and thrives in deep shade. Its reproduction mirrors that same philosophy: high risk, high specificity, and total dependence on hidden partnerships. Long before scientists unraveled its strange biology, Monotropa uniflora had already captured human imagination. Many cultures recognize the ghost plant for its value in traditional medicine, using preparations of the plant to treat eye conditions, nervous disorders, and pain. At the same time, its appearance earned it a far more ominous reputation. With its waxy white stems and habit of emerging suddenly from dark forests, the ghost plant became strongly associated with death, spirits, and decay. Some believed it grew where the dead were buried or where life had been drained from the soil. Others saw it as a messenger between worlds, a plant that didn't belong fully among the living. Despite its ghostly appearance, Monotropa uniflora is deeply tied to the health of the forests it inhabits, and that makes it surprisingly vulnerable. Because the ghost plant depends on intact underground fungal networks, it is highly sensitive to environmental disruption. Deforestation removes the mature trees that feed those fungi. Soil disturbance from logging, construction, or heavy foot traffic can sever the delicate mycorrhizal connections it relies on. Even subtle changes in forest composition can cause entire ghost plant populations to vanish. This sensitivity makes Monotropa uniflora an indicator species. When ghost plants appear, it's often a sign that the forest is relatively undisturbed, with healthy soils, established trees, and thriving fungal communities. When they disappear, it can signal deeper ecological damage happening below the surface, long before trees start to fall or animals move away. Perhaps most importantly, the ghost plant highlights a truth that's often overlooked. Protecting plants means protecting fungi, too. Fungi form the hidden infrastructure of forest ecosystems. They recycle nutrients, support tree growth, and create vast underground networks that move water, carbon, and minerals through the soil. When those networks collapse, plants like Monotropa uniflora simply cannot survive. Because it doesn't photosynthesize, the ghost plant can't adapt quickly to disturbance. It can't bounce back in cleared areas or regrow in fragmented forests. Its presence depends entirely on ecological stability. In that way, this pale, quiet plant serves as a reminder that conservation isn't just about what we can see. Sometimes protecting life means safeguarding the invisible connections beneath our feet, the fungal threads that hold entire forests together. At first glance, Monotropa uniflora looks like a mistake, a plant that forgot how to be a plant. But the deeper we look, the more extraordinary it becomes. This is a flowering plant that never turns toward the sun and never makes its own food. Instead, it survives by tapping into underground fungal networks, quietly redirecting energy that flows from trees through fungi and into itself. It spends its entire life in the shadows, emerging briefly after rain, blooming once, and then fading back into the forest floor. And yet it works. Nature is often taught as a set of rules. Plants photosynthesize, fungi decompose, animals move. But the ghost plant exists in the spaces between those categories. It's a rule breaker, a loophole finder, A reminder that evolution doesn't aim for neat definitions, it aims for survival. Rather than competing for sunlight, this plant evolved an entirely different strategy. It found a way to live by exploiting connections most of us never notice. In doing so, it reveals just how interconnected forests truly are, and how much of life happens beyond our view. So next time you walk through a shaded forest, remember that beneath your feet lies a hidden web of life, and that sometimes the most extraordinary organisms are the ones that thrive without ever seeing the sun. If you enjoyed this dive into one of nature's strangest rule breakers, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with the weirdest plant or fungus you've ever encountered, or one you'd love to see covered next. Until then, keep your curiosity sharp, your eyes open, and your wonder alive. This has been the Flora Files. See you next time.